Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ms. Cook, in the context of a report coming forward with a new regulatory framework, is it your view, with all the extensive study and work that you've done on the industry, that in fact a level playing field exists and your recommendations coming forward in April will establish that level playing field?
So through you, Madam Speaker, certainly it's hard to define what a level playing field is, sir. I would suggest to you, as I had mentioned previously, that our goal is to reasonably and appropriately regulate industries and businesses for the type of service they provide to ensure public safety and consumer protection. Where there are differences that affect those public safety or consumer protection aspects, there may be differences in regulation. So it would be my goal is to equitably regulate and ensure that everybody is subject to the appropriate level of regulation to ensure those outcomes of public safety, consumer protection.
Now, given the history of Uber and their reaction to any form of regulation, what's the likelihood that the regulations that come forward and are adopted by Council will in fact be snubbed by Uber in keeping with their history?
So through you, Madam Speaker, sir, it certainly would be irresponsible for me to prejudge another party's actions. I can inform you that on January 22nd, Uber Canada Inc. received a taxicab brokerage license in compliance with the bylaw for the purposes of dispatching licensed taxicabs.
Question of legal. Ms. Kiniskowski, is it fair to say that the position being put forward today basically says that if Uber snubs or refuses to comply with new regulations that Council intends to put in place, there is a much stronger likelihood that if we were to file an injunction at that point in time, we would be much likely to be successful in the courts than if we were to file an injunction today, since Uber is violating the rules today?
It's possible. There may be other circumstances, but that's not an unfair statement to make.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. To speak, Mayor Tory.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have two motions to put to Council. I don't know if they're available. Yeah, there they are. The first is that the City Council amend Licensing and Standards Committee Recommendation 1 by adding the words "under the appropriate circumstances." So the recommendation now reads, as you see on the screen: City Council direct the City Solicitor and Executive Director of Municipal Licensing Standards to return to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice under the appropriate circumstances to seek an injunction against Uber and individual UberX drivers based on the updated regulations to Toronto Municipal Code Chapter 545 approved by City Council at its meeting on September 30th, October 1st and 2nd, 2015. The second motion is also on the screen now, that would move that we direct that the information in the confidential attachment remain confidential indefinitely, as it contains advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. Madam Speaker, first of all, I want to thank the members of Council for a full discussion, both in camera and a discussion that will continue now. And as you can see, what I've done is moved a small amendment to the original resolution that came forward from the Licensing and Standards Committee. I think it is important for the Council and the public to understand, and the members of the taxicab industry and people from Uber for that matter, that the city staff are actively enforcing the bylaw with respect to Uber. We've heard quite a bit about that from our staff in respect to the number of cases they have, some of which are pending before the courts very shortly, and that our staff are working hard to ensure through this enforcement activity that when they feel that they are in the right position to file a successful injunction application, that injunction application will be filed. And I want to thank the staff for their work on every aspect of this matter, this complicated matter, including in respect of enforcement. I believe that what we're doing here today, as proposed by, or as suggested by my slightly amended motion, achieves the right balance. I think it clarifies these things a little bit based on the advice of our solicitor, based on the advice of our head regulator, and I would ask for the members' concurrence in approving this amended resolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. We do have questions. Councillor Karygiannis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Mayor. Appreciate the fact that we're using the word appropriate. What in your mind, sir, is appropriate? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year? What in your mind is appropriate?
Well, I think that as I just said a minute ago, I'll just read back my own words, that our staff are working hard to ensure through this enforcement activity that when they feel they're in the right position to file a successful injunction application, that injunction application will be filed. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position, as you know, nor are our officials, to convey. It would be unwise and inappropriate for them to convey their legal advice to us in this public setting. But that, so as a result, it's difficult to put a time frame on it. We do know the time frame stated here in public as to when the court proceedings are moving ahead. Some of them are scheduled for this month, some for next month, so those files will be in court. And we do know that the regulator is planning to bring forward a proposal to the licensing committee in April and to this council in May.
I would put it to you that we're letting Uber get off the hook one more time. I could be wrong, but I put it to you. You're the lawyer. I'm not the lawyer. I'm not the legal expert on this. You stated before, you're the lawyer. We've done everything that we must do in order to proceed and capture them. Therefore, delaying one more time is what we practice the 3D approach: delay, deny until the industry dies. So what is appropriate, again, in your mind, sir, as a lawyer? Is it a month, 2 months, 3 months? I think we need to send a signal, a clear signal out there to people that says, we're going to put up with you, and we will allow you to give us the one-finger salute, as you stated, for this time longer. So, can I ask you,
again, I guess I would say, in response to that, Madam Speaker, the following. First of all, there are enforcement activities being undertaken which the Director of Licensing, I'm sure, could share with you in greater detail, but she's already outlined that there are many of those. I think they're up over 100 in terms of different proceedings at different stages. And secondly, and I can't unfortunately get into this, as you know, because it relates to the nor can any of us in this public setting. It relates to the legal advice we've received that the matter of an injunction and the matter of the prosecutions and all the different matters, including the preparation of a draft bylaw, are intertwined with one another, and that we have to be careful. And that's why I sort of emphasized in saying it a couple of times that surely, I think you'd agree with me, the objective here has to be to try it, if you're ever going to try for an injunction, it be a successful injunction application, not an unsuccessful one. You know, I've said this before, so I'll say this again. This is not based on anything we just heard from our solicitors, but I've said before, I've practiced law for quite some time, but I know that you weaken your position if you go forward a second time, and lose on an injunction application. The courts at some point in time say, look, how many times do you have to be told no? And so I think that's why, based on the advice we've received, it's important that if and when our solicitor and other officials decide to advise us that it's time to seek an injunction and it's appropriate, that they will do so, and they will certainly have an eye, among other things, on maximizing our chances of winning. What good is it going to do anybody out there, including taxi drivers, who I would concede are having a very tough time in the current environment, to have us go forward and unsuccessfully seek an injunction, other than to provide some very short-term gratification when the application is filed, which, by the way, you know, and this is, again, public information that any lawyer could tell you this, not our own lawyers. You know, and I know, that any application filed tomorrow morning will not be in the courts for months, because there has to be affidavits prepared, there have to be cross-examinations on the affidavits, there has to be a court date. And the last time, for example, when this very same city on this very same matter sought a court date, it took 2 or 3 months. So the whole time elapsed was 6 or 7 months. So I hope that none of us will be creating the impression that even if there was an injunction application that our staff decided to file tomorrow because they thought it was an appropriate time, that it would be in court anytime soon, not because of our wishes, but because of the court process.
We're running out of time, but my last question would be to you, sir, through the chair. Don't we have confidence in what our staff brought to us back in September? Don't we have confidence that they closed that loophole? Don't we have confidence in their words and in their work that if we proceed right now would be successful? We're saying when appropriate is just like eroding away everything that we did back then and saying that, hey, you know what, thank you for your legal advice, thank you for your work, but we're not sure if you did the right stuff.
Councillor, your question is?
My question is, do you have confidence of the work that our staff and advice that they gave us back in October in order to loop in Uber was correct, and therefore, if they give us that advice, we have now a successful case of proceeding with an injunction.
I think you've heard in this, and again, it stands to reason, it's not a confidential matter, that what happened in October is one piece of many pieces in a puzzle that go together to fix this issue, fix it in the sense of making sure that we resolve it so that there can be a good ground transportation system that is safe and that is fair and equitable for all the people participating. And when you ask me the question, don't I have confidence, I will tell you what I have confidence in. I have confidence, and I regret the fact that because when you're in a potentially adversarial legal situation, you can't outline your own legal advice in front of those who would try and defeat you. But I do have confidence, absolute confidence, in the professional, objective advice of our professional, objective solicitors, which you heard about in the last couple of hours. And I can't disclose what that is, but you know what it is. You were here. You heard it. I have confidence in them.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the Mayor. I think that it's possible that the appropriate time, the vagueness of the appropriate time, is bothersome to some because there's an element of uncertainty. Would not the appropriate time be when we have a regulatory regime in place or a proposed regulatory regime in place that results in an impasse between the industry and the city?
Well, I guess, Madam Speaker, again, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of being able to precisely answer that question because it would involve going into what we were told by way of legal advice. But I think by saying appropriate, we are leaving it to our professional advisors. And I hope there is absolutely no one, I certainly haven't heard anyone in this chamber suggest that they are anything other than professional, objective advisors, and that we're saying to them in all of the circumstances involved here, which relates to, without getting into it, the prosecutions, the bylaw preparation, the conduct of people in the marketplace and so on, that they are left with the decision here to decide, what is the wording again, under the appropriate circumstances to seek an injunction. And the only other word I added to that was successful. And I think it goes without saying that we only want to launch an injunction application that is successful. And again, I'll just go back to my own words here, which did not say, and nor does the resolution as amended say that we would not do it or that we would do it. It certainly doesn't say we would not do it. It says that we would ensure through this enforcement activity that when they feel they are in the right position to file a successful injunction application, that injunction application will be filed. And the resolution simply says they will decide in their professional objective judgment when the appropriate circumstances have arisen.
So at some point in time, you would be unopposed to an injunction at some point in time?
Well, I'll give you a hypothetical example. I can tell you right now that if, for example, there was a new regulation brought forward and approved by this council, and any party in the ground transportation industry, including but not limited to Uber, said we're just not paying attention to that, we don't care about that, and it was a fulsome, balanced regulation, as I expect we're going to have brought forward to us that covers everything, I would be very much inclined to want to hear why we shouldn't be proceeding right away to enjoin those people from not following those rules.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll recess to 2 o'clock. Pardon? Councillor DiCiano?
Motion to extend. We've got 2 more people on the speakers list.
We 2 more people on the speakers list. We have more than 2 people on the speakers list. So.